Hey everybody, Brian Ballengee with Golf Newsnet here. Thanks for checking out our channel once again. So today for you, we have a grip review. I don't recall that we've ever done a grip review on this channel before for a variety of reasons. One of them being we don't talk about grips very often in general. We talk about heads and shafts and other components of equipment, but we don't get into too many grips. And second of all, I don't change my grips that much. I'm kind of bad about that. You're supposed to change them relatively frequently when they get worn out. And I'm one of those people, and you may be nodding your head wherever you're watching this, if you're one of them too, that just kind of runs your grips into the ground. You don't have a good rhythm of changing them. You don't do it every season. You're just kind of bad about it. And I will raise my hand as one of those people who is a bad example of how frequently you should change your grips. That said, I had some new grips sent to me from the gang at SuperStroke, and they've come out with a new line of grips, and they're called the Traxion Tour, Traxion Tour grips, and they wanted me to try them out, see what I thought of them. And I've had them put on my irons, my Mizuno irons that I've been using throughout the entire summer, getting rekindled with them, enjoying them again after a few years out of the bag, and they needed a little bit refreshing, so it was kind of the perfect marriage of new grips and old clubs. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about the grips and then tell you my thoughts on the grips and see if maybe they make some sense for you in your game. So here's the Traxion Tours, and they kind of bring in some components of grips from SuperStroke's past and grips from elsewhere, and different components that kind of made this grip feel familiar and different all at the same time. So the first thing you're going to notice is that it looks like a SuperStroke grip. It still has the characteristics, the design, the aesthetic of a SuperStroke grip. It's got the polyurethane layer on the outside that's tacky when you touch it. Not too tacky, but tacky enough. And then underneath of it, there is a secondary rubber layer. So you kind of get that nice SuperStroke feel when you grip it, but you don't grip it so softly that you don't feel like you have any control over the grip. And that was one thing that I feared right out the gate, was that playing a SuperStroke grip that looks like a SuperStroke putting grip would mean I wouldn't be able to feel like I could control how I grip the club, that it would almost feel like it was out of my hands, it was too soft, or that it would be so soft that I would feel like I'm gripping the steel and not the club, and that would be uncomfortable and awkward too. It turns out neither of those were the case. It was just the right mix for my hands of the polyurethane layer and then the rubber catching up so that I could have a firm enough grip that I felt in control, but that it was soft enough that it felt really comfortable. The other thing that you're going to notice is actually on the underbelly of the grip, and that's what they're calling Spyne technology. You've seen the development, redevelopment, I suppose, of reminder grips in recent years, and they have become popular, and they have expanded in terms of sales and the number of models that contain them. And this is kind of SuperStroke's take on the reminder grip. So there is an actual spine. There's a seam that runs down the back of the grip, and then that gives you an area where, in concept, you could consistently place your hand, so you kind of know how it feels. So where the spine part should hit with certain parts of your fingers, if you can do that consistently, then these grips will help you with that. I grip my club so funky so many different times over the course of a round. It doesn't really mean that much to me, but it certainly can be helpful if you're someone who doesn't feel like you've got a consistent grip, or maybe you need a little bit of extra help in trying to remember where certain fingers go on the grip. So that's not a bad thing at all. This is a mid-size grip, so it's a little bit bigger than your standard, but the one thing that they do have throughout the series is a lack of taper as you go down. And that's also something that's become increasingly popular, particularly among tour players, because the more taper that you have, the smaller the grip that you have at the bottom end. And for a lot of golfers, that tends to lead to a natural panic where you grip the bottom of the club harder, and all of a sudden your grip pressure isn't ideal. With less taper, the concept is you grip the bottom of the club with less pressure, closer to the pressure that you have at the top, because that's obviously the widest part of the grip. And that means you're going to grip it more consistently with better pressure, and you're going to swing better throughout your entire bag. And I think that's been the case. I actually feel really comfortable with these in hand. I don't think I've given them the death grip even once, which has kind of been nice. And it actually has been really helpful on wedges in particular. I tend to get into situations where I have a lot of partial shots when I play golf, and I had a lot of partial wedges And sometimes when you feel like you got to hit one kind of hard, you don't know how to grip it. And sometimes when you feel like you've got to step on something a little bit more or less, you kind of death grip it to try and control it. With these grips, I feel a little bit more comfortable just kind of holding it and letting the club do the work and letting my rotation and my swing and my competence as a golfer do all the talking. It's actually been really helpful. And the other thing you're going to see that I think is kind of helpful to this discussion is, and is going to be the barrier that most people have to get over in buying a SuperStroke grip like this, is the traction. How does it actually feel in your hands? Because when you think SuperStroke, you don't think a firm grip. And a lot of players like that firm grip. They like having something give them feedback that they just kind of hold on to instead of having to dig into. I was always a huge fan of the original Wind grips. When the Wind wraps came out at first, I loaded all my clubs up with those things, and I ran those things into the ground until the wraps were coming off of them. I loved them that much. And then I went to another generation of them, and they had gotten too soft. And it was like I was gripping the steel. And that's what I was worried was going to happen here. I was going to wind up gripping the steel, and I wouldn't like them. And that I wouldn't have enough kind of traction and enough stability and enough tackiness on this top layer here that I would be able to grip it the proper way. And that's not been the case. Again, with the reinforcing rubber layer, that's been helpful, but also these traction components do kind of give you some sense of kind of a velvet style, not that tacky, but enough that you feel confident holding the club in most conditions that you're not going to let it go. Now, of course, you can run into a situation where it gets really wet. I am a horrible wet weather player because I just grip it too hard. I don't have enough faith in my clubs to be able to do that. So I'm kind of curious how this would do in a big rainstorm. But frankly, between you and me, if it rains that hard, I'm going in and drinking a few beers before I go out and play. I'm not playing in that stuff. So I'm not really worried about it. Durability over time, I've had these for about a month and a half on these at this point, and they're in pretty good shape. I mean, I actually like them better now that they've been on for a while because it feels like, one, I know them, but two, the kind of griminess that I get from playing golf and the tackiness that just kind of comes out of your hands has actually made them a little bit better. Eventually that's going to deteriorate and I'm going to have to replace them, but I don't feel like I can't extend these any longer than I would extend any other grips that I would use. They're reasonable to buy. I mean, they're, $7 a pop or so. They're available in a couple of different colorways. So this one and one with a little bit more black than red. And they look good. I mean, people notice them and they ask questions about them, but when they see them work and they see me score just as well as I normally do, they realize that this is a quality product that you can believe in. You can give it a good shot. So if you're someone like me who likes a softer grip, but you still need something to hold on to, something to have really good grip pressure so you're not death gripping it, then this may be an option for you. Maybe something to consider. And for SuperStroke, this I think is probably their best foray yet into the grip space for the other 13 clubs in your bag that aren't a putter. So give them a try. Check them out at SuperStroke. You can find them on Twitter, Facebook, all your social media sites, or just Google SuperStroke. They'll take you there as well. And you can find a dealer near you who will put these on for you and do a good job. Like my guys at the Argyle Country Club Pro Shop did a great job with these. Thanks for watching. I'm Ryan Ballengee, and we will see you next time.